Liam said after a while. Nora turned to him, a touch of wariness entering her expression. "You may ask. I reserve the right not to answer." Liam smiled at her caution. "Fair enough. I was wondering why you've chosen to keep moving from town to town. You clearly have the skills to establish a permanent business somewhere. Why the nomadic life?" The question touched on considerations Nora had been pondering herself since arriving in Ash Fork. She took a moment before answering. "At first, it was necessity," she admitted. "After my father died, staying in our hometown became difficult. Too many people with too many opinions about what a young woman on her own should do. Moving on seemed the simplest solution." She paused, considering how much to reveal. "And then it became a habit, I suppose." Each new town offered a fresh start without the weight of expectations or assumptions. "But it must be lonely," Liam observed, his tone gentle rather than judgmental. Nora looked away, uncomfortable with his perception. "Sometimes," she acknowledged, "but there's a certain freedom in it too. I answer to no one but myself." "And is that enough?" Liam asked quietly. The question hung between them, more weighted than it might have seemed on the surface. Nora found herself unwilling to examine it too closely, especially with Liam watching her with those perceptive blue eyes. "It has been," she said finally, gathering the remains of their lunch to signal an end to the conversation. "We should head back if I'm to take any photographs today. The light will be ideal for the main house in about an hour." Liam accepted her deflection without pressing further, helping her pack up their picnic things and return to the horses. As they rode back to the ranch complex, Nora found her thoughts in unexpected turmoil. Liam's question had touched on doubts she usually kept firmly suppressed. Was her independent, nomadic life truly fulfilling? Or was it merely a shield against potential rejection and hurt? She pushed the thoughts aside as they reached the main house. There was work to be done, photographs to take. Personal considerations would have to wait. For the remainder of that first day, Nora focused entirely on her craft, setting up her camera to capture the main house in the afternoon light. Liam left her to her work, understanding that she needed to concentrate, though he remained nearby, attending to ranch business while occasionally checking if she needed anything. By the time the sun began to set, Nora had exposed several plates and felt satisfied with her initial work. Alina brought her fresh lemonade as she packed up her equipment. "You will return tomorrow?" the housekeeper asked. "Yes, if that's convenient," Nora replied. "There's much more to document." "Good," Alina said approvingly. "Senor Reeves, he seems. Content today, it is good to see." Before Nora could respond to this observation, Liam approached from the barn. "All finished for today?" he asked. "Yes, I've made a good start," Nora said, professional pride evident in her voice. "The house photographs should turn out well. The light was perfect." "I'm glad to hear it," Liam said sincerely. "Same time tomorrow. There's the north pasture. I'd like to show you some of the best grazing land in the county." "Tomorrow would be fine," Nora agreed, surprised by how much she was looking forward to it. As Miguel helped load her equipment back into the buggy for the return journey to town, Nora found herself reflecting on the day. It had been professionally satisfying but also, personally, unsettling. Liam Reeves was becoming more than just a client, and the realization both thrilled and alarmed her. Alina accompanied her back to town, chatting comfortably about life at the ranch and subtly providing background on Liam that filled in some of Nora's understanding of the man. By the time they reached Ash Fork, twilight was falling, casting the town in soft golden light. "Thank you for your company today, Mrs. Hernandez," Nora said as Miguel helped unload her equipment at the studio. "I enjoyed getting to know you." "And I you, Miss Garrison," Alina replied with a warm smile. It is good that Senor Reeves has found someone who understands what he is trying to do with the ranch records. He is a good man, the best I know. He deserves happiness." There was a gentle suggestion in her words that Nora chose not to acknowledge directly. "He's fortunate to have such loyal employees," she said instead. Alina's knowing smile indicated she wasn't fooled by Nora's evasion, but she simply nodded and instructed Miguel to help carry the equipment inside before they departed. Alone in her studio as darkness fell, Nora began the process of developing the day's plates, losing herself in the familiar chemical procedures that would transform her exposures into visible images. As the photographs gradually appeared in the developing bath, she felt a surge of satisfaction. They were good, capturing both the physical reality of the rocking R and something of its spirit as well. One image in particular stood out, a view of the main house with the mountains behind it, the afternoon light creating a golden glow that seemed to embody the pride and care Liam had described. Looking at it, Nora could almost hear his voice speaking of his father's legacy and his own responsibility to it. It was well past midnight when she finally finished developing and fixing the day's photographs. Exhausted but pleased with her work, Nora locked up the studio and made her way to the boarding house, her mind still filled with images of the rocking R and of its owner. The pattern established on that first day continued through the following weeks. 6 days a week, Alina and Miguel would arrive at 7 in the morning to transport Nora and her equipment to the ranch. Each day, Liam would show her different aspects of the rocking R, from the remote pastures where the cattle grazed to the corrals where the horses were trained, from the bunkhouse where the ranch hands lived to the old line cabin where his father had first settled the land. The photography project expanded naturally beyond its original scope. What had begun as simple documentation became something more comprehensive, a visual record not just of the physical ranch, but of the life and work that animated it. Nora photographed the ranch hands at their tasks, the cattle drives, the blacksmith shoeing horses, Alina in her kitchen garden, and even Liam himself, caught unaware as he worked alongside his men. Throughout these weeks, Nora found herself increasingly drawn to Liam. His intelligence, humor, and quiet strength appealed to her in ways she hadn't experienced before. He respected her work without condescension, valued her opinions, and seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and experiences. Unlike other men she'd known, he didn't view her independence as a challenge to overcome or a flaw to correct, but as an intrinsic part of who she was. For his part, Liam made no secret of his growing feelings for Nora, though he respected her professional focus and never pushed beyond the boundaries she established. Their conversations during long rides across the ranch lands gradually deepened, touching on books they'd read, places they'd seen, and their hopes for the future. By the 4th week of the project, Nora had accumulated a substantial portfolio of images documenting the rocking R. She had also, against her better judgment, developed feelings for Liam that went far beyond professional appreciation or simple friendship. On a Friday afternoon, as they rode back to the main house after photographing a distant section of the ranch, Liam brought his horse alongside hers. "The project is nearly complete, isn't it?" he asked, a note of regret evident in his voice. Nora nodded, feeling a similar reluctance to see their time together end. "Yes, I believe I've documented everything you requested and quite a bit more besides. I should be able to assemble the complete portfolio within another week." "You've done remarkable work," Liam said sincerely, "far beyond what I initially envisioned." "Thank you," Nora replied, warming at his praise. "It's been a fascinating project, one of the most satisfying of my career." They rode in silence for a few moments before Liam spoke again. "There's a social at the town hall tomorrow evening, a dance to raise funds for the school. I was wondering if you might consider attending with me." The invitation, while not entirely unexpected, still caught Nora off guard. Their relationship had remained ostensibly professional despite the growing connection between them. A public appearance together at a town social would signal something more. "As friends?" she asked cautiously. Liam reined his horse to a stop, prompting Nora to do the same. He turned in his saddle to face her directly, his expression serious. "No, Nora, not as friends." His blue eyes held her steadily. "I think we both know there's more between us than that. I'm asking to court you properly, if you're willing." Nora's heart raced at his directness. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, while another part, the cautious, independent self she'd cultivated for years, hesitated. "Liam, she began, then paused to gather her thoughts. "These past weeks have been special to me. You've been special to me, but my life isn't settled. I've never stayed in one place long enough to allow yourself to form attachments," Liam suggested gently when she trailed off. Nora nodded, appreciating his perception. "Yes, and I'm not sure I know how." "Perhaps it's time to find out," Liam said, his voice warm. "I'm not asking for promises, Nora. Just an opportunity to see what might develop between us, beyond the confines of work." Put that way, it seemed like a reasonable request, a natural progression of the connection they'd been building. Yet Nora knew it represented a significant departure from the careful independence she'd maintained since her father's death. "What about the town gossips?" she asked, voicing one practical concern. "Earl Watson and his friends have already made assumptions about us." "Let them talk," Liam said dismissively. "Anyone whose opinion I value will judge us by our actions, not by gossip. Besides," he added with a hint of humor, "I've lived in this territory long enough to earn the right to escort whomever I please to a town social without explanation." Despite her reservations, Nora found herself smiling at his confidence. "You make it sound so simple." "It can be," Liam replied, "if we don't overcomplicate it." Looking at him in the golden afternoon light, Nora felt something shift within her, a willingness to take a risk she would have avoided just weeks earlier. This man, with his quiet strength and unexpected sensitivity, had somehow breached the walls she'd built around her heart. "Very well," she said finally. "I would be pleased to attend the social with you tomorrow evening." Liam's smile was like sunrise breaking across his face, transforming his usually composed features with genuine joy. "I'll call for you at 7 then." As they continued their ride back to the main house, Nora felt both excitement and trepidation about what she had just agreed to. For the first time in years, she was allowing herself to contemplate a connection that might lead to permanence, a frightening prospect for someone who had used mobility as protection against vulnerability. Yet as she glanced at Liam riding beside her, she couldn't deny the rightness she felt in his company. Whether it led to heartbreak or happiness remained to be seen, but Nora recognized that some journeys were worth undertaking despite the risks. Back in town that evening, Nora faced a practical challenge she hadn't anticipated. She owned nothing suitable for a town social. Her wardrobe consisted primarily of practical clothing for work, with only a few respectable but plain dresses for Sundays and business meetings. Nothing that would be appropriate for a dance. At breakfast the next morning, she confessed her dilemma to Clara Winters, who responded with unexpected enthusiasm. "Oh, this is perfect," Clara exclaimed. "I have just the thing, a blue silk dress that my sister sent me from St. Louis. It's a bit too small for me, but it should fit you beautifully, and I've been looking for an excuse to have it worn." "Clara, I couldn't possibly," Nora began. "Nonsense," Clara interrupted firmly. It's sitting in my trunk doing no good to anyone. Besides, she added with a knowing smile, half the town has been speculating about you and Liam Reeves. Might as well give them something worth talking about. Despite her embarrassment at being the subject of town gossip, Nora found herself grateful for Clara's generosity. After breakfast, they went to Clara's room, where the schoolteacher produced a lovely dress of cornflower blue silk with modest lace trim far more fashionable than anything Nora had worn in years. "It's beautiful," Nora admitted, running her fingers over the fine fabric. "Try it on," Clara urged. "We may need to make a few adjustments." The dress fit remarkably well, needing only minor alterations to the hem and waist, which Clara performed with quick, expert stitches. When Nora looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The blue silk complemented her fair coloring, and the cut of the dress emphasized her slender figure in a way her practical work clothes never did. "You look stunning," Clara said, standing back to admire her handiwork. "Liam Reeves won't know what hit him." Nora blushed, but couldn't deny a certain pleasure in the transformation. It had been a long time since she'd allowed herself to embrace her femininity so completely. "What about my hair?" she asked, touching her short honey blonde locks self-consciously. "Leave that to me," Clara said confidently. "I have a few ideas." By the time 7 o'clock approached, Nora had been thoroughly prepared for the social. Clara had arranged her short hair in a surprisingly feminine style, with soft waves framing her face and a small decorative comb, adding a touch of elegance. A borrowed pair of earrings and gloves completed the ensemble. "Remember," Clara advised as they heard a knock at the front door, "you deserve this evening of enjoyment. Don't let anyone's small-mindedness diminish it." Nora squeezed her friend's hand gratefully. "Thank you, Clara, for everything." When she descended the stairs to the boarding house parlor, Nora had the satisfaction of seeing genuine surprise and admiration in Liam's expression. He stood waiting in an impeccably tailored dark suit, his hat in his hands, looking every inch the successful rancher, but it was the warmth in his eyes as they took in her appearance that made Nora's heart skip. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you," Nora replied, feeling uncharacteristically shy. "Clara was kind enough to lend me the dress." "I must remember to thank Miss Winters," Liam said, offering his arm, "though I suspect you would look just as lovely in your usual attire." The genuine compliment brought a flush to Nora's cheeks as she placed her hand on his arm. Mrs. Peterson, watching from the parlor doorway, gave them an approving nod as they departed. The town hall was only a short walk away, already lit up and bustling with activity as they approached. Music spilled from the open doors, a small band of local musicians playing a lively tune. Couples and families streamed inside, the women in their best dresses and the men in suits or clean work clothes. Nora felt a moment of anxiety as they reached the entrance. "Everyone is looking at us," she murmured to Liam. "They're looking at you," he corrected gently, "because you're the most beautiful woman here tonight." His confidence steadied her, and Nora lifted her chin as they stepped inside. The hall had been transformed with paper decorations and lanterns, the wooden floor cleared for dancing. Tables along one wall held refreshments, while benches lined the other walls for those not dancing. As they entered, the music momentarily faltered as heads turned in their direction. Nora recognized the Thompson family, several of her portrait clients, and with an inward grimace Earl Watson and his friends near the refreshment table. "Miss Garrison, Mr. Reeves." Mrs. Thompson bustled over to greet them, her genuine warmth cutting through the moment of awkward silence. "How wonderful to see you both. Miss Garrison, that color is absolutely perfect on you." Her friendly welcome seemed to break the spell, and conversations resumed around them. Liam guided Nora further into the hall, greeting acquaintances with easy courtesy while keeping her close by his side. "Would you care for some punch?" he asked as they completed a circuit of the room. "Yes, thank you," Nora replied, grateful for a moment to compose herself. As Liam went to fetch their drinks, Clara appeared at Nora's side, looking lovely in a green dress. "You're causing quite a stir," she said with a mischievous smile. "Mrs. Abernathy nearly swallowed her dentures when you walked in with Liam Reeves." Despite her nervousness, Nora laughed. "Is it really so shocking?" "Ash Fork hasn't had much excitement since the Perkins boy fell into the water trough during last year's 4th of July celebration," Clara replied. "Besides, Liam is considered the town's most eligible bachelor. Half the unmarried women in the county have set their caps for him without success." Before Nora could respond, Liam returned with 2 cups of punch. He greeted Clara warmly and thanked her for the loan of the dress, his easy manner putting both women at ease. The band struck up a waltz, and Liam turned to Nora. "May I have this dance?" Nora hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I should warn you, it's been some time since I've danced." "I'll lead," Liam promised, taking her hand. He guided her onto the dance floor with confidence, one hand resting lightly at her waist while the other held hers. As they began to move to the music, Nora was pleasantly surprised to find that Liam was an excellent dancer, leading her with subtle guidance that made it easy to follow his steps. "Where did you learn to dance so well?" she asked as they circled the floor. "Harvard," Liam replied with a hint of humor. "My Boston relatives insisted I learn all the social graces, despite my protests that I'd never need them in Arizona territory." "And yet here we are," Nora observed, smiling up at him. "Here we are indeed," Liam agreed, his eyes warm as they met hers. "I'm finding those lessons more valuable than I ever expected." As they continued to dance, Nora gradually relaxed, enjoying the sensation of being led by capable hands through the familiar patterns of the waltz. She became less conscious of the curious gazes following them, and more aware of the simple pleasure of moving in harmony with Liam. When the waltz ended, they were approached by Mr. Thompson, who engaged Liam in conversation about recent territorial politics. Nora took the opportunity to catch her breath, accepting a glass of water from Clara, who had been watching from the sidelines. "You two look good together," Clara commented. "I haven't seen Liam so animated at a social event in all the time I've been in Ash Fork." Before Nora could formulate a response, she became aware of a commotion near the refreshment table. Earl Watson's voice rose above the general conversation, loud enough to carry across the room. "Don't see what a man like Reeves wants with a woman who dresses like a man and does a man's job," he was saying to his companions, clearly intending to be overheard. "Must be desperate if he's courting the lady photographer. Or maybe she's just easy prey, being new in town and all." Nora felt her face flame with anger and embarrassment. Clara touched her arm supportively, but before either woman could speak, Liam was striding across the room toward Earl, his expression thunderous. The crowd parted before him, conversations dying as people sensed the confrontation brewing. Liam stopped directly in front of Earl, his voice low but carrying in the sudden silence. "I believe you owe Miss Garrison an apology, Watson." Earl, emboldened by alcohol and the presence of his friends, sneered. "Don't see why. Just stating what everyone's thinking. A proper woman doesn't gallivant around the countryside alone, taking pictures and wearing men's clothes." "Miss Garrison is a respected professional who has shown more courage and determination than most men I know," Liam replied, his controlled anger more intimidating than a shouted response would have been. "She deserves your respect, not your crude insinuations." "Didn't take you for a man who'd be led around by a pretty face," Earl retorted, looking past Liam to where Nora stood. Especially one that comes with a woman who doesn't know her proper place. Liam's hands clenched into fists, and for a moment Nora feared he would strike Earl. Instead, he spoke with deadly quietness. "My patience is at an end, Watson. You will apologize to Miss Garrison now, or you will answer to me outside." The threat hung in the air, made all the more serious by Liam's reputation as a fair but formidable man. Earl glanced at his friends. Finding no support there, they had backed away slightly, unwilling to be drawn into a confrontation with Liam Reeves. Nora stepped forward, unwilling to let the situation escalate further. "Mr. Reeves," she said clearly, "I appreciate your defense, but Mr. Watson's opinion is of no consequence to me. I would prefer to continue enjoying the evening rather than allow his rudeness to disrupt the social." Her calm dignity in the face of insult made Earl look all the more boorish by comparison. Several of the townspeople nodded approvingly at her response. Liam turned to her, his anger softening slightly. "As you wish, Nora, but the choice of whether to apologize still stands for Mr. Watson." Earl looked between them, recognizing that he was rapidly losing whatever audience he had thought to impress. With poor grace, he muttered, "No offense meant, Miss Garrison." It was hardly the apology Liam had demanded, but Nora nodded acceptance, wanting only to end the uncomfortable scene. "None taken, Mr. Watson." Mrs. Thompson, ever the social mediator, clapped her hands to attract attention. "I believe the band was about to play a Virginia reel." "Everyone take your places." The crowd began to disperse, grateful for the diversion. Liam remained tense for a moment longer, his eyes still on Earl, before Nora gently touched his arm. "Dance with me," she asked softly. The invitation seemed to break through his anger. Liam's expression softened as he looked down at her. "Are you sure you want to stay? We could leave if you prefer." "And give Mr. Watson the satisfaction of thinking he ruined our evening." "Absolutely not," Nora replied with determination. "Besides, I've always enjoyed the Virginia reel." A slow smile spread across Liam's face. "You continue to surprise me, Nora Garrison." "Good," she said lightly. "I'd hate to become predictable." As they took their places for the dance, Nora was aware of curious and speculative glances from the townspeople, but they seemed more approving than censorious. Liam's public defense of her had made a statement that few could misinterpret. He considered her worthy of respect and held her in high esteem. The Virginia reel was followed by more dances, and as the evening progressed, Nora found herself genuinely enjoying the social. Liam was an attentive partner, making sure she had refreshments when needed and introducing her to various townspeople she hadn't yet met through her business. Several of the ranch owners' wives made a point of engaging her in conversation, asking about her photography and expressing interest in having family portraits taken. Even Mr. Thompson, the banker, discussed the possibility of commissioning photographs of the new bank building once construction was completed. By the time the social began to wind down around 11, Nora realized she had potentially gained several new clients and, more surprisingly, a degree of acceptance from the town's established families. Liam's open support had undoubtedly influenced their reception of her, but she sensed that her own dignity and composure during the confrontation with Earl had also made an impression. As they walked back to the boarding house through the quiet streets of Ash Fork, Liam offered Nora his arm. The night was pleasantly cool after the warmth of the crowded hall, stars glittering overhead in the clear desert sky. "I must apologize for Watson's behavior," Liam said after they had walked in companionable silence for a while. "I should have anticipated trouble and headed it off before it reached that point." "You have nothing to apologize for," Nora assured him, And neither do I, despite what Mr. Watson seems to think. Liam stopped walking, turning to face her in the moonlight. No, you don't, he said seriously. Nora, I want you to know that I admire your independence and your courage. They're not qualities I find challenging or inappropriate, they're part of what draws me to you. The sincerity in his voice moved her deeply. For so long, Nora had been defending her choices and her lifestyle against criticism or condescension. To have them explicitly valued instead was a novel and powerful experience. Thank you, she said softly. That means more to me than I can express. Liam reached out to take her hand, his touch gentle but sure. Despite Watson's rudeness, I hope you enjoyed the evening. I did, Nora replied truthfully. Very much so, thank you for inviting me. They stood for a moment in the moonlight, hands joined, the connection between them strengthening in the quiet intimacy of the moment. Liam's gaze dropped to her lips, and Nora felt her breath catch in anticipation. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to withdraw if she wished, Liam leaned down and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, tender rather than demanding, yet Nora felt it down to her toes. She responded with a matching gentleness, her free hand coming to rest lightly on his chest. When they parted, Liam's smile held a warmth that made Nora's heart skip. I've been wanting to do that for weeks, he admitted. I'm glad you waited until now, Nora replied softly. It made it more special. They continued their walk to the boarding house, hands entwined, both feeling the shift in their relationship. At the front gate, Liam paused. When will you return to the ranch to continue the photography project? He asked. Monday morning, Nora replied. As usual. Would you consider having Sunday dinner with me tomorrow? Liam asked. Not at the ranch, there's a spot by the creek that's perfect for a picnic. I could pick you up after church. The invitation represented another step away from their purely professional relationship, but Nora found she welcomed it. I'd like that very much, she said. Liam raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Until tomorrow, then. Good night, Nora. Good night, Liam, she replied, reluctantly withdrawing her hand and making her way up the path to the boarding house door. Inside, she found Mrs. Peterson waiting up in the parlor, ostensibly reading but clearly monitoring the comings and goings of her boarders. Did you enjoy the social, Miss Garrison? The older woman asked, setting aside her book. Very much, thank you, Nora replied, unable to keep a note of happiness from her voice. Mrs. Peterson nodded approvingly. Mr. Reeves is a fine man. His father was one of the first settlers I knew when I came to this territory as a young bride. The Reeves men have always been honorable to the core. Yes, I believe he is, Nora agreed, touched by the older woman's implicit endorsement. As she prepared for bed that night, Nora found her thoughts filled with memories of the evening, the dancing, Liam's defense of her, the conversations with townspeople who seemed to be accepting her presence, and most of all, that gentle kiss in the moonlight. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future that included staying in one place, forming lasting connections, perhaps even building a life with someone else. It was a frightening prospect in many ways, after so long on her own. Yet as she drifted towards sleep, Nora found that the fear was overshadowed by a growing sense of possibility and hope. Sunday dawned clear and warm, a perfect day for the picnic Liam had proposed. Nora attended the morning church service, where she noticed a distinct change in the way the townspeople greeted her. There were more smiles, more direct acknowledgments, even a few invitations to join various church activities. Whether this was due to Liam's public championship of her, or simply the community's gradual acceptance, Nora wasn't certain, but she welcomed the change. After the service, Liam met her outside the church, having exchanged his Sunday best for more casual attire suitable for a picnic. He had a buggy waiting, a wicker basket already loaded in the back. Elena insisted on preparing our lunch, he explained as he helped Nora into the vehicle. She seems to have appointed herself guardian of our friendship. The slight hesitation before the word friendship made Nora smile. I suspect Elena has strong opinions on many subjects. You have no idea, Liam agreed with a chuckle, taking his place beside her and picking up the reins. She practically raised me after my mother died, and she's never quite accepted that I'm a grown man capable of managing my own affairs. They drove out of town, following the same road that led to the Rocking R but turning off onto a smaller track after a few miles. The path wound through stands of cottonwood trees until they reached a secluded spot by a small creek, where the water burbled pleasantly over rocks and created a natural pool in the shade of the trees. "This is beautiful," Nora said as Liam helped her down from the buggy. "I had no idea this was here." "It's part of the Rocking R, technically," Liam explained, retrieving the picnic basket and a blanket from the buggy. "But it's far enough from the main operations that it remains peaceful. My father used to bring me fishing here when I was a boy." He spread the blanket in a shady spot near the water and offered Nora his hand to help her settle comfortably. The gesture was unnecessary but courteous, and Nora found she appreciated these small attentions that demonstrated Liam's consideration without implying weakness on her part. The picnic Elena had prepared was substantial and delicious: cold chicken, fresh bread, cheese, fruit, and even a bottle of wine carefully packed to keep cool. As they ate, their conversation flowed easily, touching on books they had read, places they had seen, and their thoughts on various subjects. "Tell me about your travels," Liam requested as they finished their meal and sat contentedly in the dappled shade. "Where have you been since leaving Illinois?" Nora leaned back, supported on her elbows as she looked up at the patterns of sunlight filtering through the leaves above. "I started eastward, actually spent some time in Ohio and Pennsylvania before turning west, then Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico Territory, and finally Arizona. I've stayed anywhere from a few weeks to several months in each place, depending on the work available and the reception." "Any favorites among those places?" Liam asked, genuinely interested. "Colorado was beautiful," Nora recalled. "The mountains there are spectacular, completely different from the landscapes here, but equally majestic in their own way. And I enjoyed parts of New Mexico Territory. Santa Fe has a fascinating blend of cultures. Would you want to return to any of those places?" The question seemed casual, but Nora sensed an underlying purpose to it. She considered honestly before answering. "I don't think so. Each served its purpose in my journey, but I've never felt drawn to return to any of them. They were stopping points, not destinations." Liam nodded thoughtfully. "And Ash Fork, is it just another stopping point?" The directness of the question caught Nora off guard, though perhaps it shouldn't have. Liam had demonstrated repeatedly that he preferred honesty to polite evasion. "I don't know," she admitted, meeting his gaze. "When I arrived, I assumed it would be, but now." "Now?" Liam prompted gently when she trailed off. Nora took a deep breath. "Now I find myself considering possibilities I haven't allowed myself to contemplate in a very long time." It wasn't quite a declaration, but it was more than she had intended to reveal. Liam seemed to understand both what she had said and what remained unspoken, for he reached over to take her hand, his thumb tracing gentle patterns across her knuckles. "I'm glad to hear that," he said simply, "because I find myself hoping very much that Ash Fork might become more than a stopping point for you." The admission hung between them, charged with meaning and possibility. Nora felt a familiar fear trying to assert itself, the instinct to withdraw, to protect herself from vulnerability and potential hurt. But alongside it was a newer, stronger feeling, a desire to embrace the connection forming between them, to see where it might lead. "Liam," she began, uncertain how to express the conflicting emotions within her. "You don't need to say anything now," he assured her, seeming to read her struggle. "I understand that I wasn't part of your plans when you came to Ash Fork. I'm not asking for promises or declarations. Just openness to possibilities." His understanding gave Nora the breathing room she needed. "I can offer that," she said softly. "Openness to possibilities." Liam's smile was like sunrise breaking across his face. "That's all I ask for now." The rest of the afternoon passed in pleasant conversation and companionable silences. They walked along the creek, Liam pointing out places where he had fished as a boy or seen particular wildlife. As the sun began to lower in the sky, they reluctantly packed up their picnic things and prepared to return to town. Just before they left, standing beside the buggy in the golden late afternoon light, Liam took both of Nora's hands in his. "Thank you for today," he said, his blue eyes warm as they held hers, "for your company and for your honesty." "Thank you for understanding," Nora replied, meaning it deeply. "Few would." Liam leaned down and kissed her gently, a brief but tender touch that conveyed affection without demanding more than she was ready to give. As they drove back toward Ash Fork, Nora found herself leaning slightly against Liam's side, accepting the comfort of his solid presence beside her. The following weeks brought a gradual but steady deepening of their relationship. Nora continued her work on the ranch photography project, but now there were shared meals, occasional rides that had nothing to do with documenting the property, and quieter moments of connection. In town, they were seen together at church services and community events, their growing attachment becoming common knowledge. To Nora's surprise, the townspeople's reception of her improved significantly as her relationship with Liam became apparent. Whether this was due to his respected position in the community or simply the natural process of acceptance over time, she couldn't be certain, but she found herself increasingly welcomed into the social fabric of Ash Fork. Her photography business thrived as well. The portraits she had taken of the Thompson family circulated among the town's prominent citizens, leading to numerous commissions. The railroad station master hired her to document the expansion of the station, and several ranchers, following Liam's example, commissioned photographs of their properties. By mid-August, nearly 3 months after her arrival in Ash Fork, Nora found herself in the surprising position of having more work than she could easily manage, and a social circle that included not only Clara Winters and the Thompsons but several other families as well. For the first time since her father's death, she felt herself putting down roots in a community. Her relationship with Liam continued to develop at a measured pace that respected her need for independence while acknowledging their growing feelings for each other. They had not spoken explicitly of a future together, but the possibility hovered in their conversations and in the plans they made. On a warm Saturday evening in late August, Liam invited Nora to dinner at the ranch, not a working visit, but a formal dinner to celebrate the completion of the photography project. Elena had prepared a special meal, and the dining room of the main house was set with the best china and silver, candles providing a warm, intimate light. "This is quite an occasion," Nora observed as Liam held her chair for her. "I feel underdressed." "You look perfect," Liam assured her, taking his own seat at the head of the table. "And it is indeed a special occasion. The photography project is complete, but more importantly, it marks 3 months since you arrived in Ash Fork." "Has it been that long already?" Nora marveled. It seems both longer and shorter somehow. Time has a way of behaving strangely when life is changing, Liam observed. Elena served the meal with dignified ceremony, each course more delicious than the last. As they enjoyed the food and conversation, Nora found herself looking around the dining room, noting details of the house she hadn't fully appreciated during her working visits: the craftsmanship of the furniture, the quality of the fixtures, the subtle touches that made the house both impressive and comfortable. "Your father built a remarkable home," she commented. "He did," Liam agreed, following her gaze around the room. "Though it was never quite the same after my mother died. I think that's why he sent me east. The house felt empty to him without her, and seeing me only reminded him of what was missing." "Do you resent that he sent you away?" Nora asked gently. Liam considered the question before answering. "I did at first. I was a child who had lost his mother and then, in a way, his father too. But as I grew older, I came to understand his grief better. And the education I received in the East has served me well, even here." He smiled slightly. "Though I doubt my professors at Harvard ever imagined I would apply their economic theories to cattle ranching in Arizona territory." After dinner, they moved to the parlor, where a small fire took the edge off the evening coolness that was beginning to replace the summer heat. Elena brought coffee before tactfully withdrawing, leaving them alone. Liam seemed somewhat nervous. Nora noticed unusual for a man who typically projected such quiet confidence. He paced slightly before sitting beside her on the sofa, turning to face her with an expression of determination. "Nora," he began, "there's something I've been wanting to discuss with you." Her heart quickened at his tone, anticipation and anxiety mingling. "Yes. These past 3 months have been the happiest of my life," Liam said simply. "Getting to know you, watching you build your business and your place in the community, seeing your courage and determination every day, it's been a privilege." "Liam," Nora said softly, touched by his words. He took her hands in his expression serious but warm. "I know you came to Ash Fork expecting it to be temporary, another stopping point in your journey. And I know that forming permanent attachments wasn't part of your plan. But plans change, sometimes for the better." Nora nodded, unable to deny this truth. Her plans had indeed changed since meeting Liam, her vision of the future expanding to include possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider before. "I love you, Nora," Liam said, the simple declaration filling the room with its significance. "I love your independence and your spirit, your talent and your determination. I love the way you see the world through your camera and the person you are when you're not behind it. And I would be honored if you would consider making Ash Fork your permanent home as my wife." Though she had sensed the conversation was moving in this direction, the actual proposal still took Nora's breath away. For a moment, she sat in silence, her hands in Liam's, feeling the weight of the decision before her. "This isn't a request for you to give up your independence or your work," Liam continued, seeming to read her thoughts. "I would never ask that of you. Your photography is part of who you are, and I respect that completely. I'm asking if you would share your life with me as equals." The words "as equals" resonated deeply with Nora. Throughout her adult life, she had encountered men who viewed women as subordinate, as possessions rather than partners. Liam had consistently demonstrated a different perspective, one that valued her autonomy and respected her abilities. "I love you too," she said softly, the admission both frightening and freeing. "These months with you have shown me that independence doesn't have to mean isolation, that sharing my life with someone doesn't have to mean surrendering my identity." Liam's eyes lit with hope at her words. Then Nora took a deep breath, making the conscious choice to embrace the future opening before her rather than clinging to the safety of her solitary past. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger with certainty. "Yes, I will marry you, Liam." Joy transformed his features as he gathered her into his arms, holding her close with a tenderness that made her heart swell. When he kissed her, it was a kiss that promised partnership, respect, and enduring love, everything Nora had never thought to find but now couldn't imagine living without. They were married in October, when the desert heat had subsided, and the landscape was touched with the subtle colors of fall. The ceremony took place in the Ash Fork Church, filled to capacity with townspeople who had come to accept and even embrace the unconventional lady photographer who had captured their most eligible bachelor's heart. Clara Winters stood as Nora's maid of honor, while Liam's foreman, a steady, reliable man named Thomas who had worked at the Rocking R since Liam's father's time, served as best man. Mrs. Thompson had helped organize the reception at the town hall, and even Alina had unbent enough to contribute her famous pastries to the celebration. Nora wore a gown of ivory silk that Clara had helped her select during a special trip to Prescott, her honey blonde hair arranged simply with a few wildflowers. Liam, handsome in a new suit, couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle on Mr. Thompson's arm, the banker having graciously offered to stand in for her late father. Their vows were traditional but spoken with personal conviction, each word a promise they intended to keep. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the applause from the congregation reflected genuine goodwill rather than mere social convention. The reception that followed was joyous and surprisingly harmonious. Even Earl Watson and his friends, who had been noticeably subdued since Liam's public defense of Nora at the social, offered awkward but seemingly sincere congratulations. Mrs. Peterson wept openly, declaring it the finest wedding Ash Fork had seen in a generation. As they danced together for the first time as husband and wife, Liam held Nora close, his expression one of quiet contentment. "Happy, Mrs. Reeves?" he asked softly. "Very," Nora replied, the new name strange but welcome on her ears. "Though I intend to keep Garrison for my professional work, if you don't mind." "I wouldn't have it any other way," Liam assured her. "Your reputation as a photographer is your own achievement." The practical arrangements of their marriage reflected this respect for Nora's professional identity. While she moved to the Rocking R to live with Liam, they agreed that she would maintain her studio in town, traveling in 3 days a week to handle portrait commissions and other business. The remaining days she would work from the ranch, documenting life in the Arizona Territory for a book they had discussed collaborating on her photographs, paired with his knowledge of the region's history and development. Their first year of marriage brought challenges as well as joy, as they both adjusted to sharing their lives after long periods of independence. There were occasional disagreements, moments of frustration or miscommunication, but these were outweighed by the deep satisfaction they found in their partnership. Nora's business continued to thrive, her reputation extending beyond Ash Fork to neighboring communities. Liam supported her work wholeheartedly, even building her a larger darkroom at the ranch so she could develop her more ambitious landscape photographs without having to travel to town. In the spring of their second year of marriage, Nora discovered she was expecting their first child. The news brought both joy and anxiety, concerns about how motherhood would affect her work, fears about the physical challenges of pregnancy in the frontier territory. But Liam's steady support and Alina's practical wisdom helped ease her worries. Throughout her pregnancy, Nora continued her photography, albeit with some modifications to accommodate her changing body. Liam insisted on accompanying her on her more strenuous excursions, but he never suggested she should stop working altogether. Instead, he helped her adapt, carrying her heavier equipment and suggesting locations that would be accessible yet still yield the dramatic landscapes she sought to capture. Their son, William Henry Reeves, was born in November, a healthy, robust baby with his father's blue eyes and his mother's fair coloring. Nora found motherhood both more challenging and more rewarding than she had anticipated. The exhaustion of caring for an infant while maintaining her business tested her endurance, but the profound love she felt for her child and the partnership she shared with Liam sustained her. As William grew from infancy to toddlerhood, Nora established a new rhythm to her work. Elena proved invaluable, caring for the boy when Nora needed to focus on her photography, while Liam often took his son with him on his rounds of the ranch, teaching him about the land and the livestock from his earliest days. By the time William was 3, Nora and Liam had completed their book, Arizona Territory, a photographic record which combined Nora's striking images with Liam's knowledgeable text. Published in San Francisco, it received favorable reviews and established Nora's reputation well beyond the local area. Their family grew again with the birth of their daughter, Elizabeth Elena Reeves, when William was 4. Liam doted on his little girl, while William appointed himself her solemn protector, a role he took very seriously. As the years passed, the Rocking R prospered under Liam's management, expanding its operations while maintaining his commitment to fair treatment of workers and sustainable practices. Nora's photography business evolved as well, focusing increasingly on documenting the changing West while training a young assistant to handle most of the portrait work in town. The Arizona Territory achieved statehood in 1912, a development Liam had long advocated for through his participation in territorial politics. By then, William was 13, Elizabeth 9, and they had added another son, James, to their family. The Reeves children grew up with an unusual upbringing for the time, encouraged to pursue both practical ranch skills and intellectual interests, regardless of gender. Elizabeth, to Elena's delight, showed an early interest in photography, often accompanying Nora on her excursions and demonstrating a natural eye for composition. William, thoughtful and deliberate like his father, gravitated toward the business aspects of the ranch, while young James combined his mother's artistic sensibility with his father's love of the land. Through it all, Nora and Liam maintained the partnership they had established from the beginning of their relationship based on mutual respect, shared values, and a love that deepened with each passing year. They weathered the challenges that came their way: drought years that threatened the ranch, economic downturns that affected Nora's business, the inevitable conflicts and concerns of raising 3 strong-willed children by facing them together, each contributing their particular strengths to the solutions. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Liam surprised Nora with a special gift, a new, state-of-the-art camera he had ordered from New York, along with a planned trip to Yellowstone National Park, where she had long wished to photograph the natural wonders. "I thought we might make it a family expedition," he explained as she examined the magnificent camera with evident delight. "The children are old enough now to appreciate it, and it would be good for them to see more of the country." "It's perfect," Nora said, deeply touched by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you for always supporting my work, all these years." "How could I not?" Liam replied, drawing her into his arms. "Your passion for capturing the beauty and truth of the world is one of the things I've always loved most about you." As they stood together on the porch of the home they had shared for 2 decades, looking out over the ranch that had flourished under their care and the family they had created together. Nora reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From the solitary, wary woman who had arrived in Ash Fork, determined to maintain her independence at all costs, to the wife, mother, and established photographer she had become, it was a transformation she could never have anticipated. "What are you thinking?" Liam asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "I was thinking about that day I first arrived in Ash Fork," Nora replied, leaning into his embrace. "How different everything might have been if you hadn't spoken up that day in the general store." "I like to think we would have found each other anyway," Liam said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Some things are meant to be." Nora smiled, not usually given to such romantic notions but unwilling to dismiss the possibility. "Perhaps you're right, but I'm glad it happened as it did." "As am I," Liam agreed. Every day. From inside the house came the sounds of their children, Elizabeth's laughter, William's deeper voice explaining something to his younger brother, James's enthusiastic response. The life they had built together surrounded them, rich with love and purpose. Nora turned in Liam's arms to face him, studying the familiar beloved features that had aged so gracefully over their years together. The lines at the corners of his eyes spoke of laughter and sunshine, the silver threading through his dark hair of experience and wisdom. To her, he was more handsome now than when they had first met. "I love you," she said simply, the words no less meaningful for having been said countless times before. "And I love you," Liam replied, his blue eyes warm with the depth of his feeling. "Always." As the sun set over the Arizona landscape they both loved, Nora and Liam Reeves stood together in the life they had created, a testament to the power of acceptance, respect, and love to transform two independent lives into something greater than either could have achieved alone.